Hello, good evening. I'm Sally Taylor. Welcome to South Today. If you've ever had experience of a hospice, perhaps you've lost a loved one or visited a friend receiving end-of-life care, then you'll know what incredibly special places they are. But the sector is facing a funding crisis, resulting in job losses and cuts in services right across the country, including here in the south. And we'll have more on that in just a moment. But first, Simon Marks has been to a hospice in Dorset, celebrating its 50th anniversary, to understand the unique role it plays in people's lives and deaths.
A few weeks before their 61st wedding anniversary, Terry and Barbara were planning a holiday with their family, but stayed behind because Barbara was feeling unwell.
By the time the family came back, Barbara had been diagnosed with cancer. She had pancreatic cancer, and the specialist said it's so far developed, there's no treatment.
Barbara stayed at home for as long as she could, with support from a local charity, Macmillan Caring Locally.
They were excellent in as much as they came and talked to us in our home and just help us as a family come to terms with obviously what was a terrible shock.
Barbara's condition deteriorated quickly.
The Macmillan nurse suggested that Barbara come in to the hospice here for respite and to review her medication. Sadly, 40 hours later, she passed away. 7 weeks from diagnosis to her passing, just 7 weeks.
The chapel is part of the Macmillan unit, a hospice which opened in 1973. Dr. Ronald Fisher was the founder, and the Duchess of Roxburgh did the honours at the opening ceremony. The following year, a charitable trust was established, and the unit became the first hospice to work in partnership with the NHS. 50 years later, the work continues as a team of palliative care nurses care for up to 16 patients at the hospice and many more in the community.
We're based at Christchurch Hospital. We take patients with life-limiting illnesses and ensure that they're as comfortable as possible and have the best death as possible. I came here straight as a student, and in December I would have been here 18 years. We will do anything possible to make things as best as what they can be in that really rubbish situation, but it is about making them feel comfortable so that they're not in pain.
We think of end of life as being an old person thing, but actually it's not always, is it?
No, we often have young patients as well, and we can go through periods of having a few patients in their 30s, and that is quite difficult. We've had young patients that come outside, and what's important to them is to be able to sit out in such a beautiful place. We can wheel beds out for the patients. They can enjoy the sun and the peace. And it's actually really important to get things right and for them to have a good death.
The unit is jointly funded by the NHS and a charitable trust, of which Neil Williams is the secretary.
We're very small. We're not part of the national Macmillan Cancer Support. We're a totally independent, small charity. It's not a hospital, it's a home from home.
So tell me about the Jolly Trolley, what's that?
It's if you enjoy a gin and tonic with your meal at home, then why shouldn't you do the same in the hospice? Our clinical teams and our volunteers are there to make sure that our patients get the best possible care.
How much money do you need to raise every year? What's the running cost of this place?
We need approximately 1.8 million every year just to fund the running of the hospice.
A party was held to mark the 50th anniversary. The charity relies heavily on volunteers, including Terry, who helps with a fundraiser called the Human Fruit Machine.
We're all proud to be volunteers. Many of us have stories to tell of loved ones. Barbara was so well treated that I just wanted to repay what they did.
And thank you so much to Terry for sharing Barbara's story with us. Well, Charlie King is from the national charity Hospice UK, which works to support the sector. I spoke to him a little earlier and started by asking him to explain why hospices aren't fully funded by the NHS.
Palliative and end-of-life care as a medical specialty developed after the emergence of the NHS, and so hospices have always sat outside of the NHS. And that means that typically, at a national level, on average, around a third of a hospice's funding comes from the government, from the NHS, and around 2/3 comes from charitable giving. So that literally means the second-hand jeans and board games that people buy in charity shops, and the sponsorship that people get for running marathons and things like that. That is providing 2/3 of the money at a national level to fund the amazing, brilliant, compassionate care that you've just seen and that hospices provide.
So what is the answer to this? Because has funding been reduced or is demand increasing in our hospices?
It's a bit of both. In the immediate sense, funding from the government, so that 1/3 that's provided by the state, is reducing. And that's in real terms because of the fact that costs to run hospices are going up significantly. So the cost of medicine, the cost of energy, and in particular, the cost of paying brilliant staff a fair wage has increased significantly in the past couple of years. And what we're seeing is that government funding is not keeping pace with that rapid increase. And so that effectively means, in many instances, hospice funding is being cut. And so hospices are now having to make difficult choices about the services that they can continue to run. There's an example, the Rowans Hospice just near Portsmouth has quite recently had to announce some relatively significant cutbacks to its services, including, very sadly, the loss of some of its clinical staff.
So what is the solution? Because we've heard some heartbreaking, emotional stories this evening.
Yes, we are asking the government for, in the short term, an injection of funds to stem the flow of these cutbacks and these job losses. In the long term, we want hospices to be seen as an equal partner in the healthcare system. We want to be part of the solution to delivering a healthcare system, a health and social care system that's fit for the future. Hospices have a big role to play. We just want to be seen as an equal partner in that system by the government.
Charlie King, great to talk to you. Thank you so much.